Well, what better way to start our presentation but with Judge Larkin on our own faculty. Thank you for coming by, and thank you everybody for coming. I think this is not surprisingly a well-attended event. It always is. We've had this event for about 5 or 6 years now, and these are super opportunities, especially as a student right now. Last night I happened to coincidentally be at an event in Boston at the Social Law Library, which is a library that services a lot of the Massachusetts courts. It's in the same building as a lot of the courts. It's in the John Adams Courthouse, is that correct? And it was honoring one of the judges who was retiring, but the panel was on judicial internships, and they wanted to know what other law schools were doing, what all the courts were doing. I was on a panel, Denise was on a panel, lots of other people from the courts and the law schools. This is a really timely topic, and I have to tell you, the judges and the courts are really interested in having great student interns, and I think everybody there agreed that although it might not be the best time if you're looking to have a full-time paid post-graduation job in the courts, although there are certain opportunities, our school does sponsor some students, Russell being one of them, it is an excellent time to be a student interning in the courts because you are doing seriously substantive work. You are doing the work that the law clerks used to do, but there's a hiring freeze and they're not there to do anymore. The judges really need hands, and for people who have the right skill set and really want to do it, this is your opportunity. So I don't want to say too much before because we have a super panel. Some new faces, some familiar faces, but as happens every year when we have this, the information, some of it stays the same and some of it changes, and things are really evolving, and I think the way things are evolving is about the internships for students are becoming a bigger piece of the puzzle. Just by a show of hands, just so the panel has an idea, how many people here are first years? How many people second years? Third years? Graduates? All right, so we have a real mix. Anybody here have worked in the courts before, whether as an intern or, okay, so we have a couple, great. I'm going to do a real quick introduction of everybody on the panel, and then I'm going to have each of the panelists talk for maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, talk a little bit about their court, what their court does, what the internship opportunities are, what the post-graduation clerkship opportunities are, and anything else I think is interesting about the courts and being, involved in the courts. You'll see from the handouts for some of them, I noted for some people if they had been law clerks in those courts, because I think part of, like all of the other panels and discussions we've had at the school, there's sometimes a progression, and you start doing one thing and it leads to something else and so on and so forth. So I thought that would be instructive and informative if you saw that for some of them, and also see how long some of them have been with their particular court. First is Michael O'Loughlin. Michael is a senior administrative attorney at the Massachusetts Boston Municipal Court. Next to Michael is Jill Zeiter. She's the acting court administrator at the Land Court, and from what I understand, which I could have put on here and should have actually, is that before she was at the Land Court, she worked within the district court for the 10 years preceding that. So she also has a big history with being in the court. Next to Jill is Denise Fitzgerald. Denise is an administrative attorney for legal research services at the Massachusetts Probate and Family Court. And you can see from her description that she started there as a law clerk. She became the chief law clerk, and then she came into her current position. So if you see a lot of these people have been staying in these positions, you might gather from that that these are pretty good jobs and great places to work, so something to keep in mind. Next to Denise is Russell. Some of you might recognize Russell because Russell graduated in May. Russell has, not only is he a current law fellow, which means he's working full-time in the Superior Court, Russell also, it was last spring when you were an intern, so he did a spring internship through the field placement program. Is that correct?
That's right.
The way the Superior Court does this, and we'll talk about this afterwards, is their school year internship in the spring is through field placement. They will only place you. They want the training and the supervision and all those components that go into it. They have a great summer internship program, and that's one of the handouts that's over there. So Russell can speak about both pieces of that and how it worked for him. And certainly last but not least is Richard Klein. Richard is a law clerk at the Massachusetts Appeals Court, and from what I understand from what Judge Larkin was saying as he came in was that he was just getting in touch with some of the justices at the appeals court, trying to look for further opportunities for our students and our graduates at the appeals court. So there's a lot of opportunity. These are great jobs. These are people who are rich of information, and we're really fortunate to have them. So I'm not going to say much more right now. I'm going to let Michael get started.
I appreciate Leslie's kind invitation to come back again. I was told last year my presentation was great, and the first thing Leslie said was, last year you brought props. So fortunately, I didn't disappoint. I do have 2 props, and I'm going to keep your attention. You can figure out what are these 2 things have to do with my internship. Ashley Judd and a purple envelope, which the real purple envelope is a much bigger purple envelope, but it's not very easy to get a large purple envelope. And the third prop is my tie, which is the school colors, which I didn't realize I was dressing, go UMass. But
you see why I invited Michael back. He's a very good fan.
You all look very healthy and attentive, so either exams haven't come yet or you just cruise until whenever they do come. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today. I'm an administrative attorney at the Boston Municipal Court Department. I work for Chief Justice Charles Johnson and the 28 associate judges of the Boston Municipal Court. Our court has 8 divisions located in the city of Boston and approximately 300 employees. Basically, anytime you turn the news on and there's a crime in Boston, somebody that I know is going to be dealing with it tomorrow, and I pray that it doesn't end up with me. We're a busy trial court and process a wide variety of civil and criminal cases, including firearms and drug offenses, assault and battery, and small claims cases. Interns who volunteer for us may be asked to assist with the drafting of criminal motions to suppress evidence, assisting with our appellate division, as well as performing legal research. Our office is currently developing an internship program with the UMass School of Law. If you're interested in the Boston Municipal Court, please talk with Attorney Becca Wilson, who can give you more information. I know that my colleagues from the other courts in Massachusetts will give you a wealth of information regarding internship programs in their court. I'd like to deviate just a bit and give you some tips on how to succeed in your internship if you work in a court. Number 1, try to be the type of intern that you would want to have in your office. Be on time, dress appropriately, maintain a consistent schedule. In essence, always strive to be as helpful as possible. And now, mind you, I could tell you a story about each one of those points, but we don't have enough time. So if they're mentioned, there's a reason why. Secondly, always maintain the confidentiality of the court as well as the information which is shared with you. It's very hard to regain trust once you've lost it. Number 3, never remove court files from the courthouse without permission. Number 4, don't be afraid to ask a question if you don't understand something. Number 5, if you have a conflict with your schedule, share it as soon as possible with your supervisor. If you feel overwhelmed on your internship, and sometimes judges can dump on someone unintentionally, relax, calm down, and ask someone for help. And number 6 is very important. Be appreciative and respectful to the people who have helped you on your internship. You are forming contacts which may help you throughout your legal career. Send thank you letters and always act professionally when you receive bad news. And finally, number 7, consider performing an internship in a clerk's office or a probation office or for a lesser-known state agency. These offices might provide you with more access for you to see what lawyers do and a greater opportunity to do hands-on and useful work. When I was a first-year law student at Suffolk Law School, my legal practice skills teacher told our class, quote, "The 2 greatest abilities of a lawyer are the ability to overcome setbacks and the ability to think on your feet." Throughout my life since law school, I've always remembered this message. Being a lawyer is quite a grueling process, even as nice as everyone might try to make it for you. When you pass the bar, and the odds are in your favor, you then have the pleasure of trying to find a job. unless you became a lawyer just for the fun of it. When I was searching for a job after law school, I had an interview at a suburban law firm in Waltham. The office was overlooking a reservoir adjacent to Route 128, and the beautiful secretary in the office was telling me how nice the office health club was in their complex, and that I should join it if I was hired. When I went in for my interview, the lawyer who interviewed me quickly determined that my financial background wasn't precisely what they were looking for. He did share with me some advice that I still remember today. He told me that his wife was a lawyer who graduated from a top law school in the country. She graduated at the top of her class and was recruited by headhunters and had her pick of jobs at some of the best law firms in Boston. The interviewer told me that his law record wasn't as impressive as his wife's, and it took him a long time to find his first job. While he was happy for his wife and her success, he found it discouraging that his own career took so long to get off the ground. What did he take away from that struggle? He told me, quote, "This experience will teach you compassion for yourself and for others. You will always remember what you went through to get your first job, and it will push you to help others in the future." While I received a perfunctory rejection letter about a week later, dashing my hopes of joining the office health club, the interviewer's comments were very true. So much of what you will accomplish in your career will depend on the relationships you foster with people along the way. I have interns who interned in my office 10 years ago. I went to their weddings, they still call me. When you do things to help people, younger students, get yourself involved with community projects, it has a strange way of propelling your career forward. I think we can learn a lot about how to succeed in our careers by looking at the lives of other successful people. I've met many important people in government and in the legal community because of my job. I always enjoy hearing about how they succeeded in their careers and try to learn from them. In my life, however, I've only met 3 celebrities, but each meeting was important. First, when I was in high school, I worked at an ice cream store, which was the best job ever, and had the pleasure of waiting on Bobby Orr, the legendary hockey player from the Boston Bruins. I think I was too young at the time to appreciate the significance of meeting him. I think of this with a little bit of regret every day when I walk by the Boston Garden, which is down the street from the Brook Courthouse where I work, and see his new statue where he leaps for the puck in May of 1970. Bobby Orr reminds me that to succeed, you have to have a passion and a love for what you do. And I know we all love our jobs. My second...
That's not sarcasm.
No.
No, really, that
Some
was not
days more than
sarcasm.
others.
Yeah, but we all love our jobs.
And you'll tell Judge Johnson that the next time.
Yeah, I'll mention to the Chief Justice that you said that.
My second celebrity encounter happened many years later in 2003. I was at a concert in New Hampshire and won a backstage pass to see my favorite singer, Martina McBride. Martina got her big break in music by initially selling T-shirts at Garth Brooks' concerts.
And then she opened for him.
Yes. Eventually, she became the opening act for his concert tour. Now, this is where prop number 1 or 2, depending. Did you know that Martina McBride owes much of her success to a purple envelope? And mind you, it's much larger, and you can only get them at a place called Paper Source for $13 a package. So, you know, court budget could only be this. Martina scored a recording contract with RCA Records by sending her demo tape to RCA in a large purple envelope marked requested material, because they typically would not accept unsolicited material. So don't try that trick on anybody here, because we'll know, you know, purple envelope shredder. Commenting on her first hit song, Independence Day. Actually, do you all know who Martina McBride is? My daughter is into LMFAO or crazy group. Commenting on her first hit song, Independence Day, which is about domestic violence. We've got a court theme in there. Martina said, quote, "I never really thought, will this be a hit? I recorded it because I wanted it to be part of my body of work. I take pride that I stood up for what I believe in and didn't necessarily play it safe." Martina was extremely gracious and kind to each person who waited to meet her. I think I learned how important this is in my career, being kind to others, and standing up for what you believe in. At some point, every lawyer will be asked to stand up for something that is right, and that's not always an easy thing to do. And finally, prop number 3, my third celebrity encounter happened last spring. I met Ashley Judd last April at a seminar entitled Bittersweet Humanitarianism, sponsored by the Ford Hall Forum at Suffolk University. During the seminar, which you can download for free on iTunes, Ashley talks about her new book, her own story of abuse, but primarily she focused on her work advocating for women and children in underdeveloped countries. Ashley found this work to be the most rewarding accomplishment of her career. As the program reached the halfway point, the host invited people to line up on both sides to ask questions. I was surprised that only 6 people ventured up to the stage. Meanwhile, I was sandwiched in the center row of the auditorium where I was sitting. While I had a perfect view of the stage and enjoyed chatting with a couple from Beacon Hill who just returned from opening day at the Red Sox, at first I was hesitant to go to the stage because everyone in my row was going to have to get up and let me go by. But then something told me that I would forever regret it if I didn't seize this opportunity. I was completely clueless about what I wanted to ask Ashley, a woman I greatly admired. I thought of something one of our judges once told me. He said sometimes it's helpful to ask a puffball question in court, something a witness can easily answer and hit a home run. I really wanted to give Ashley a question that would be easy for her to answer, yet would stand out. When it was my turn to speak, I somehow got calm and thanked her for speaking at my alma mater, Suffolk. At that moment, I recalled attending a similar program in college where Jesse Jackson spoke. Reverend Jackson concluded his speech by saying, "Keep hope alive." I mentioned this to Ashley and asked her how she keeps hope alive in her life, given all the trouble she's seen. Ashley paused for a full minute looking at me and then said, "That's a really good question." I think she went to law school and not Harvard because that's a good lawyer answer. Always say that and you've got more time to think. She thought about it for a few more seconds and then talked about helping a schoolgirl in Africa buy clothes for school so that she would have the promise of obtaining an education. Helping one person gave Ashley the hope to persevere amidst great suffering overseas. When I returned to my seat, the man from Beacon Hill who was sitting next to me had tears in his eyes, I kid you not, and he told me that he was moved by my question. Well, I'm not sure if he was just very sensitive or had too much to drink at Fenway Park. I took it as a nice compliment. The director of the forum also stopped to chat with me, and I made a very useful networking connection. After the program ended, I waited in a brief line to have Ashley sign my book. Again, I had to decide what I was going to say to her. I told her it was great to meet someone with such strong convictions. She signed my book, thanked me, and then winked at me. Needless to say, I was floating on air at home and at work for weeks. I think the people at work were getting sick of hearing about it. And one judge said to me, he quoted a biblical scripture. He ran in his office and came right back out. And the biblical scripture said that a wink is not a good thing. But in my book, a wink from Ashley Judd is priceless. Now, while I understand that Ashley Judd may or may not be your hero, I did learn quite a bit from this encounter. Don't be afraid to break out of your routine and try something new. Taking risks pays off, and help other people whenever you can. And to leave you with a quote from Ms. Judd, quote, "I'm not sure where this journey will take me. All I know is that I'll always be traveling on the front lines of hope, expecting miracles to happen. I wish you the best of luck in your education in law school and your careers as lawyers. If there's anything I can do or the Boston Municipal Court can do to help you in your quest for knowledge and truth, please let me know. Be sure to keep hope alive, expect miracles to happen, and you will always succeed."
Be the type of intern you want to be is probably the best way to put it, and I think everybody here would agree. We have all heard sort of different kinds of war stories. Ask questions, take risks, think out of the box because your opportunity is going to be a little limited. If anybody is interested in interning at the BMC, so on one of the handouts I have looks like this, a whole bunch of stapled pages. These are taken right off of Simplicity. I know everybody here It was about simplicity because you had to RSVP for simplicity to be here. And first year is on December 1st. If you've gone to the information session and met with me, you'll have access to the simplicity job postings. But the second posting is for the BMC. It talks about the opportunities. It talks about the things that Michael didn't talk about, a little bit about the job description, the hiring criteria, the hours and all that. So if you need those kind of details, it's there. And I would encourage anybody who is, can find themselves being in the Boston area easily. It's a really great opportunity. The court is super busy. When I went to visit Michael and the Chief Justice and some other folks there, it's a really intense, amazing place. And I think if you really want that kind of environment, you'll just thoroughly enjoy it. Jill, that is a tough act to follow. I'm sorry to put you in that position.
Well, thank you for the invitation to be here. This is my first time here. This is the first time I've been on a panel like this, so I have nothing so exciting to share.
I've done these a lot, and I don't have anything that exciting either. This is probably my 30th, my 40th, I don't know.
We'll put Michael at the end next
All
time.
right.
Yeah, please don't do that. That's just like, you set us up. That's just not nice, Leslie.
I'm probably one of those people who violated most of those 6 or 7 rules about being an intern. But I can say, just in general, I got my first legal job from being an intern. I didn't do a job search because I just stayed where I was. And that's just sort of the way they expected it to be and the way it worked out. So I encourage all of you to do some kind of internship while you're a student.
So you're saying the internship as a student turned into a job after graduation?
Absolutely. I was the person who locked the door at night as an intern, and that's who you hire. So keep it in mind, it's a wonderful opportunity that is just floating out there for you to take it. And it's something that I encourage you to pursue in any form that you can find it. Mine was through the law school. I had to go out and find it myself. I ended up in the DA's office and just stayed for a long time. So that said, land court. Land court is new to me. I'm still learning about it. But everyone always asks me the same thing. What do you do there? What's the land court? Here's my basic overview. The Chief Justice is Karen Shire. She's lovely. There are 7 judges in the land court. It has statewide jurisdiction, and we sit in one place in Boston at 3 Pemberton Square, which is right next to the SJC and the appeals court. We don't do jury trials in the land court. Everything is civil, and it's all bench trials, which means judges write decisions on everything that they do, which means research and writing, tons of it, and they can use all the help they can get. They are very much at this point used to working with law clerks, fellows, and interns. We have more and more interns than we've ever had before, and the judges are used to working with interns, and they're getting really good at it, and they like it. So more about the land court. There's exclusive jurisdiction over registration to real property, foreclosure for and redemption of real estate tax titles. That's all heard by the recorder of the land court, who is the equivalent of the clerk of the land court. Anything that's a real property matter. There's concurrent jurisdiction with the Superior Court on most of it. Specific performance of contracts involving real estate transactions, petitions for partition of real estate.
The probate and family court.
And probate and family court. Land use and environmental planning for big permitting projects, for big land use projects. And we also deal with determination of military status for residential foreclosure, which unfortunately for everyone involved has become a very big process.
Do you do that in conjunction with the housing court, or does the housing court really not get involved?
Usually in conjunction with the Superior Court, there's concurrent jurisdiction. I don't know if the housing court, I think the housing court might do some. But that's the general gist of what the land court's doing. Essentially, if you enjoyed first-year property, you're intrigued by titles and how to research titles and land use in general, this would be an interesting place for you to do an internship. If you hated property, this is not the place for you. Truly. It's a small place. Lots of one-on-one work with judges. The way this court has handled interns, law clerks, and fellows is they assign you to a judge. Sometimes some judges want to have one intern, some want to have 4. It's purely up to the judge. It's how they decide they work best with you. So if you're looking for something that's small, one-on-one, hands-on, with a judge, taking a case from beginning to end, being in court, they're going to bring you into the session with them, talk to you about what happened, ask you to take notes about what's happened, and then have you do some researching of issues and writing. They're looking for people who can write. They'll ask you to draft a lot. So it's that one-on-one, hands-on with the judge that we do because we're so small. That's just the way it works. And I'll tell you, the interns and the clerks really like that. They get very attached to their judges. They know each other well. They see each other every day, and they work very closely together. So we have in the past had the traditional clerkship where there's one clerk for one judge. That has really gone by the wayside with the hiring freeze. So we're bolstering that with interns. We had second and third year interns, and in the summer we had students who had just finished their first year. And they were terrific. They were great. They had a really good summer. The summer is May to August, and those students come in and work full-time. Other than during the summer, most students come and do internships, I think at least 15 hours a week. They're looking for a commitment where you have a chunk of time to sit down, get some work done, work with the judge. I know the deadline for spring is December 23rd.
And I'm fairly certain that if we look in that same handout that I pointed out, BMC, the Boston Municipal Court, and Massachusetts Land Court, what do I have down here as a deadline? Maybe that's not correct. I have a deadline, because I have spring, summer, fall. So tell me again the deadline for, is it for summer or for spring that you just mentioned?
For the spring.
Yep.
December 23rd,
All right.
according to Ellen.
Well, Ellen's who gets the stuff, so I trust Ellen entirely.
Right. And that's who, that's our contact person. Everything goes through the Judicial Secretary.
And it says that on the
And essentially all you need is cover letter, resume, transcript, doesn't have to be official, and a short writing sample, less than 10 pages. And the judges do all that review. They're reading all that stuff. They're deciding who they want to interview. They call you in for an interview. You interview with the judge, and then they make their offers. People who accept then get an assignment to the judge. And usually you work for one, like we talked about. Sometimes people are asked to work with the recorder of the land court, but usually it's one judge, sometimes a second. And the other thing that we have this year for the first time is we have some fellows, students who have just graduated from law school, and their school has sponsored a fellowship program. We have a few fellows from BU and UMass School of Law. This is our first time. One of those people was an intern for 2 semesters in the land court and just went on to begin her fellowship. So that's been great for her and for us because she knows us. All of that is run by the school. I think it's all run for you. But all of that has really taken the place of what law clerks used to do. So essentially what all of these folks are doing are law clerk work. So that's really what happens at the land court. The heart of it is your work individually with the particular judge. It's research, it's discussing issues, it's going into session with the judge. You're seeing a case really close up, and from the vantage point of the judge. You'd be sitting right there in front of the judge watching the whole thing. You're an extra set of hands, you're grabbing exhibits, you're putting things up, you're bringing them back and going through them with the judge. Some of the things we do just in conjunction with the interns coming and going, you'd have a basic orientation with the recorder. You'd have a session which is really fun with the chief title examiner. He does sort of registered land 101, and the chief surveyor. He does survey 101, and they're hilarious, and the students love them. They're great. We take our students on guided tours of the SJC, the John Adams Courthouse and the Federal Courthouse. They sit and observe sessions there. And during the summer, the judges did a judge intern lunch series where once a week, each judge would go in and sit and have lunch with the students, the interns, and they'd each pick a topic. So they'd come in, you'd meet each judge, they'd pick a topic, and you'd all just basically sit down and talk about it. And they both really liked that. The judges and the interns thought it was a great experience. So it's all designed for you to help the judges with research and writing, and for you to have a great experience and get to know them one-on-one. See what do you do as a lawyer and what don't you want to do. You're going to see a lot of each as you would go through an internship at the land court. So I encourage you all to apply if you like first-year property.
Michael, let me ask you a question. I forgot to ask this while you were speaking. Does the BMC ever have full-time law clerks as opposed to staff attorneys? Was that something that the BMC ever had or still does have?
We did have 3 at one point,
Okay.
but they moved on to other things and their positions weren't filled, and then the fiscal situation.
Right. That's okay. I had thought that there might have been.
I
I just wasn't
actually
sure.
was a law clerk
Okay.
at BMC for a while.
Oh, I think he was one of them. Okay. Thank you, Jill. I'm going to have Denise talk now. Everybody get their pens and papers out. Denise is going to give you a lot of very specific information. Speaking of pens and papers, does anybody have an extra pen? Because mine died. Okay, thank you all. Michael came to the ready. Thank you. I appreciate it, Michael.
Sure.
And I'm learning a lot of things here today. So without any further ado.
Okay, so my name's Denise Fitzgerald, and I went to New England at night. I was not a traditional student, and years ago when I started coming here, I sort of felt a kinship with the students who were here because a lot of them were non-traditional students as well, and I don't know whether that's changed at all, but I always felt very comfortable here and really liked talking to the students here because at the time, I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, the people they felt a little disadvantaged, I thought. You know, even though anytime that I've had a student from here, they've been stellar. And I went to New England at night, and I feel like evening students have always felt like they were a bit disadvantaged. So my path to here was interesting. I went to law school 4 or 5 years after I graduated from college, maybe 6 years, I can't remember now. 6 years after I graduated from college. And I enrolled in the evening program, and I worked full-time during the day, and was a very type A, crazy, anal law student, without a doubt. But I didn't do anything legal. I worked full-time, I went to law school at night, I never did an internship until my very last semester of school. I never worked in a law office. I did marketing and public relations. I worked in a middle school in Boston. I didn't do any of the typical things that you would look at and say, wow, this person's gonna be a lawyer. But I was fanatical about my grades. And I worked really hard when I was in law school. And I did something that I would never encourage any of you folks to do, which is apply to one job. So I applied to one job at the beginning of my 4th year of school, never actually occurring to me that I might not get it. I was really so naive despite my advanced age. And thankfully I got it. I went to the interview at the Probate and Family Court. I met with Chief Justice Dunphy, and he asked me, you know, why do you want to be here? And you'll get that question at every interview that you go to, whether it's for an internship or a postgraduate job or a job when you're in law school. And people are going to say, why do you want to be here? You want to have an answer for that. And you want it to be an answer that people will remember. So I told Chief Justice Dunphy that I wanted to work in the Probate and Family Court because I had a student, the middle school that I worked at, his name was, well, I can't tell you what his name was. His name was such and such. And he was abused by his mother, and his grandmother took guardianship over him. And what I remember about this child was that his pants were constantly falling off. Not because he was being hip and his pants were falling off. He didn't own a belt. And when his custody shifted from his mother to his grandmother, he still didn't have a belt. And so I bought him a belt, and he cried. And he said, thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald. No one's ever done that for me. And knowing that the probate and family court was active in that child's life, taking him from his mother, and bringing him to his grandmother, whatever, I choke up every time I say this, and I remember this kid this was, 12, 15 years ago. The role that the probate and family court can play in a child's life is dramatic. And I felt a calling to go there. So of course I tell Chief Justice Dunphy this, and then I proceed to get up, have my pocketbook, which I never carry, wrapped around my foot. I tripped, smacked my hands on the table to stop myself from falling. I turned around and started laughing, and I thought, I'm never going to get this job. I can't believe I just did that. But I clearly left an impression, and I got the job, which was great. But I do not recommend that, But what is important to remember is that in the place that you're at and where you want to be and in the economy that you're trying to get a job in, number one, you need to leave an impression, preferably a positive one, but you also have to be prepared. You have to know what you're going to be asked. You're going to get interviewed for these internship opportunities, and you really want to look at the jurisdiction of the court, know what the court does, know where the courts are located. It's very fundamental information that I interview people all the time. Not only when we have a clerkship interviews, but I interviewed somebody a couple of days ago and I said, what do you think the court does? And they said, divorce. Okay, well, what else? You can go on our website and you can find out all that information. So regardless of what you decide to do, whether it's an internship or hopefully we get clerkships back and you do a clerkship or whatever job you apply for, you really just want to make sure that you've done your homework and that you go in prepared. And hopefully don't trip over your purse on the way out the door. But so anyway, so I got the job, and I was a law clerk in Bristol County for 3 rotations. So I spent a year of my law clerk life here in this area. And then I became the chief law clerk, and in the middle of my chief law clerk year, a permanent administrative attorney position was created for me to manage the law clerk program, which is how the Superior Court had been set up. And so we were sort of modeling their setup. So that went on from 2004 till 2009, when as a result of the hiring freeze, when another attorney in our office left, I also was given his job in addition to my job. And to go back to what Leslie had said before, is that if you can get into one of these jobs and really make an impression, a positive impression, and retain or obtain paid employment and then be able to retain that, there are opportunities. So when this other attorney left, and not only do I now do the law clerk programs and the fellowship programs and the internship programs, I also write legislation and I write rules and I work as the representative with the Attorney General's office when the court gets sued. I do all sorts of other things, and by being someone who's open to those changes, we don't get sued a lot. We do get sued sometimes, but not a lot. So by being someone who's open to that and really being willing to do things that you don't know how to do, starting at the internship level, you can really open some doors for yourself. The most important thing to remember is that everybody started out knowing nothing. You don't know anything about the law until you're out there. And everybody started that way, and you can take classes and you can get yourself some fundamentals, but until you're in the trenches and writing and practicing, you just don't really know. But it's okay. And I think that sometimes the interns panic that they don't know things, and then they spend days and days and days and days and days researching and stewing and writing. And I always tell people, tell me what it is that you want to say. And they say, this much. And then I say, write that. Instead, what happens is that people have this short thought, and then they think they need to be lawyers. And so they write like this, and nobody can understand what they're talking about. So these are, before I get into the specifics about the probate and family court, these are things that you need to think about when you're thinking about whether an internship, specifically with the court, is something that could be a good fit for you. And it's important to know if it is a good fit for you. If you don't like to research, you probably will not love an internship or a clerkship with the court system, because that's what law clerks and interns and fellows, they do. They research and they write. There is always going to be an observation piece to your internship program or your clerkship, but the primary role of folks who work in the court system in this capacity is to research and write, and it can be very solitary. So, Michael's suggestion that other agencies, those are other things to explore too. You'll certainly have to do research and writing there, but it may be in a different context. Working in the clerk's office, like the probate and family court, we have registries, and we have a register, which is sort of like your recorder and the clerks there, or the clerk magistrates in the BMC. But that's a much more hands-on, people-oriented piece of the courts. But it gives you a huge exposure to the procedural aspect of things. So, and that's something that I never get. I never get the procedural aspects of things. I have to go to the book and look up service and citations and all of that, because I don't do that. So ideally, if you want to work in a court long term, I would recommend that you try to do one of each. That you try to do an internship that really focuses on the procedural aspects of courts, by like working in the registry or those types of things, as well as doing a research and writing oriented internship, which is really very different. One you work with the public, one you work with the judges. So that's a little bit about things to consider when you're thinking about doing this type of work. The probate and family court currently has 5 law clerks, one works part-time, so 4.5 law clerks out of 24, and we have 51 statutory judicial positions. So we went from having basically 1 law clerk for 2 judges to 1 law clerk for 10 judges. So we have, as of last January, we created a formal internship and fellowship program. So there's the formal internship program at the probate and family court. You work in a pool system under the auspices of the law clerk program. So you're interviewed by the administrative office. You come in, we talk to you, ask you where it is you think that you might like to be located, and then what we try to do is pair you up with a location that there is currently a law clerk sitting, so that you get sort of supervision. So you get supervision by me. I edit every single piece of writing that interns that are supervised by me do before they get to the judge. And I have, if they're located close to me, they come to me and we have a meeting. I had a meeting yesterday, it went 2 hours, going through and giving suggestions and that type of thing. If you're not located in Boston or Cambridge, then we would do it over the telephone. It's amazing how much you can learn just by having someone else really edit your work. Things that you're not exposed to in law school. So you have myself, you have the law clerks, and then you work directly with the judges as well. So you're sort of getting like bombarded with instruction, which as an intern can be really helpful. Like you want that. You want to be able to get feedback from as many people as you can, because everyone's feedback is going to be a little bit different, and it's going to be focused on a slightly different area. So, my focus is often on teaching interns the procedure of things and how a case flows, how the dynamics of the attorneys work, so that you can see that if this has been filed, if this type of motion has been filed, then you should be looking in the file for this type of motion, because they usually go together. And if somebody is filing a request to remove a child from Massachusetts to another state, then you should be looking for a complaint for modification that says this, because they often go hand in hand. And then the law clerks are going to be working with you on a more like day-to-day basis. and how to function through the court and what cases you want to go in and listen to and what attorneys you should look up to and which ones you shouldn't and that type of thing. And then the judges are going to be dealing with you on another level altogether with like a final written product and working on the final decision of what you're working on. So that's the, so you would apply through the administrative office to me, and you would need a cover letter, a resume, a transcript, and a 5 to 6 page writing sample that has been unedited by somebody else, which I know is really tough to do, to find something that hasn't been edited. It's okay if it's, I mean, generally if it's been edited by your roommate or, you know, a peer, but once it's gone to a professor for editing, then it's not something that, it's not a writing sample that I want to see anymore.
And are you talking about for the interns, the student interns, or for the postgraduate fellows?
Interns.
Okay.
The requirements for being an intern and a fellowship with regard to the application package
Okay.
is the same.
That's what I wanted to know. Except for the certificate of good standing.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm. So that's one way that you can do an internship in the probate and family court. Last summer we had, January we had a number of law students from New England and Suffolk, and it was a bit of a working out the kinks type of thing. And then in the summer we had a number of students from Suffolk, New England, and BC as well. We have also established relationships with Northeastern through the co-op program, and then this semester we've had some from New England. We don't have any from Suffolk. We have somebody from Northeastern, and we haven't yet really established a formal internship program here. We're sort of working out the kinks, and I really wanted to try my mistakes on other groups before I got here. So that's one way that you can intern in the probate and family court. Now we had this program last night, and there was a judge from Bristol County who was at the program and is apparently interested in having an intern. Now there is no law clerk currently sitting in this area, so I probably wouldn't place you here unless I thought that you were really very able to handle being on your own, because I feel like it's sort of setting people up a little bit to send you someplace where you don't have any support. And I think part of the internships experience is having support. That's what you're here for. You're here to learn. So I really try to pair you up that way. So anyway, so that's just, so if you want to contact judges directly, you can do that too. And there are judges that will take interns. Now, what you need to overcome when you're interviewing or when you're sending your materials directly to the judges, what you need to overcome is the hurdle of the judges being nervous that interns are more work than they're worth, okay? So what you want to be able to present to them is a very polished cover letter, resume, writing sample, and a transcript. The transcript, it is what it is, but you know, the harder you work on your academics, the better off you're going to present yourself to a judge. So when I say polished, I really mean polished. Have somebody, Leslie, look at your cover letter. I'm sure you do that. Look at your resume. I cannot tell you how many packages I get that are just deplorable. And I think, why did you send this to me? Why did you, you didn't even address it to the right person. I had somebody this year apply to a clerkship in the probate and family court, which we don't have, that was addressed to Frank Mockler, which does have clerkship opportunities. So this is not Frank, but he works for the appeals court. So I called the director of career services at the school, and I said, I just want to give you a heads up. Like, you need to, this is bad, okay? You really want to be careful. So if that person were ever to apply to me, I have like a crazy memory, I would remember that. So you want to make sure that the first impression that you're giving judges, that you want them to do something for you, that it's really the best work that you can put forward. Because anything that you work on for the judges is going to have their name on it. So if they look at something and it's sloppy, they're not going to be inclined to have you as an intern, because they're going to assume on the quality of what you've submitted to them to get the job that you're going to be a sloppy intern. Okay? So it starts at the very, very beginning. some of the things that Michael said about like getting there on time and dressing appropriately, all of that, you have to do that. You know, if you get an interview, you need to wear a suit. Even though it's an internship, you need to look the part because they're going to expect you to be available to go into a courtroom, and you're gonna have to look like a lawyer. Whether you're comfortable wearing a suit or not, you're gonna have to do it. So there are lots of things that you have to like think about when you go through this process. I know I sound very like, but there are so many people that want internships and want postgraduate work in the court system that if you don't make yourself stand out, you're gonna get lost. And so everything that you can do to put yourself in the best light you wanna do, even if it means really being, you know, crazy about having somebody edit and all that stuff, it's totally worth it. So that, like I said, you can send your materials directly to a judge. If you do that, the judge and you will work on a one-on-one basis. So you will work for that judge. There'll be no supervision from the administrative office with regard to that. It's one-on-one. And so whatever feedback you get would really just be limited to that judge. It can be a really good experience, especially if you want to be in a court that we're not currently staffing law clerks at. You know, you can really, you know, make an internship whatever you want it to be. But like I said, if you're going to solicit the judges directly, you really want to make sure that what you're sending out to them is very targeted. If you're sending something out to every judge in Bristol County or every judge in you know, whatever county you decide to send them to, make sure that every letter is addressed to the right judge. Don't send a letter to one judge that's addressed to another judge. That happens. So you really want to be careful about that. There are just some general observations with regard to internships in the probate and family court. I conduct a full day training at the beginning of each semester, and regardless of whether you're working under the auspices of the law clerk program or whether you're working directly with a judge, I do this full day training that includes substantive, you know, education on standards for modification, talking about writing divorce findings, you know, doing stuff like that. It's a full day. It covers ethics and conflicts of interest and all sorts of things. So regardless of how you get your internship, you're welcome to attend that training, whether you do it one-on-one with the judge or you do it under the supervision of the law clerk program.
Russell, does the Superior Court do something like that also for both the internship piece and for your full-time law clerk piece
Right,
as
they have
well?
a pool of interns assigned to a court as well as a direct link
Yeah.
with a judge.
Yep.
So but you did a training as well, I think I
Right.
remember Romeo
I think
telling
Romeo
me
said that last night, yeah. The other thing is that for the probate and family court, and this is supposed to be the policy for all of the trial courts, is that if you're volunteering in a trial court, you cannot do any other paid or unpaid legal work because it's a conflict of interest. So that's not a policy that the probate and family court said. It's part of a draft policy that the CJAM, who's our chief administrative judge, has you know, I don't know if it's implemented yet, but that's certainly what the draft encompasses. And you have to do a background check. You have to have a query check done. All volunteers who work in the court system, regardless of whether they're attorneys or students or whatever, have to go through a background check. The Volunteer Fellowship Program, which is a postgraduate, it runs like the internship with the that's under the auspices of the law clerk program, and we've had a number of people come through that, and it's been successful.
And there's a description of that program again in this package of papers for the Massachusetts Probate and Family Court. This is their volunteer judicial fellowship. It says a lot of the things we talked about with the application stuff, the query background, prohibit outside legal practice, so on and so forth. So the details of that, obviously, for some of you, that's not applicable because you haven't graduated and they're looking for people who have passed the bar for that particular program.
So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. This email address I wrote down. It's changed. It's Denise.Fitzgerald and then the number 1 instead of Denise M. Fitzgerald. So the trick to this is that there happens to be another Denise Fitzgerald that works in the trial court. And so she's Denise A. And so when we had our initials, it was fantastic. Nobody ever screwed it up. And now they said, no, you can't have your middle initial. So she's Denise Fitzgerald and I'm Denise Fitzgerald 1. So if you send it to her, I'm not going to get it. She's very good about being patient, but she has stopped forwarding emails because I get so many of them. But you're welcome to shoot me an email if there's anything I can do or any questions that you have.
I think all of you should pay particular attention to what Russell's been talking about, because he is the person who was most recently in your seat. As I mentioned earlier, he graduated just this past May, and he did one of these internships with the Superior Court last spring through the field placement program. And he is also one of our law fellows. We sent 3 law fellows last year to the Superior Court. We are planning on augmenting our program. This is for the class of 2012. There'll be 4 people. I'd like Russell to talk about both of those opportunities, and you'll notice that under Russell's name on the handout is the name of Romeo Kamba. Romeo is the Denise Fitzgerald of the Superior Court, so I wanted you to have his contact information, because that's the person who you would apply to, and all the application materials will always have his name. And I also thought it was instructive that you see that he too started out as a law clerk there, private practice came back, so on and so forth. So having said all that, Russell, please share your experience with us.
Excuse me. Yeah, when Romeo had originally intended to give this talk, and I think he did it last year, I sat on the other side of the table, and when he said he couldn't make it, he asked me to fill in, and I was happy to, because I think the program is really a terrific opportunity. I was a night student, and excuse me, I had a full-time job, non-legal background, and I had no legal experience. And I talked to Leslie, and I talked to the dean, and I was looking for an opportunity where I could get some hands-on experience. And what I ended up doing, I left my job on a leave of absence, and I became a daytime student for my last semester here. And I applied for an internship at the Superior Court, and I worked in New Bedford and in Fall River. And locally, they split the caseloads. New Bedford handles civil matters, and Fall River handles criminal. So if you can work in either of those, you'll get to see a little bit of everything that's going on. So I applied through the internship, which was offered through the field placement class. And that's a great opportunity that's available to you. Separately.
It will be for this
Okay.
spring. So people, and I know that there's at least one student here who's already looking into that, but their field placement, if anybody is registered or registering for it, the opportunity to have a placement in the Superior Court is available.
Yeah, that was a great opportunity, and we did have an orientation in Boston. We had to apply. We had to submit a writing sample, a cover letter, a resume, and I believe a transcript. And once we were accepted, we did have an orientation, and then we were assigned to our courthouses that were near to us. We were given a choice of a region, so I chose this area, and it worked out really well. There was a law fellow in New Bedford at the time, so I was able to consult with her to get advice.
Ms. Michelle there?
Right,
Lucky
exactly.
you.
And it's a great thing. You're working right side by side with the judge. You see the judge every day. You have time to go into the courtroom, see what other lawyers are doing, and you can talk with the judge afterwards. Was this effective? Why did he pursue that avenue of questioning? And so that's a great opportunity. You do research. You get the case file. You'll see the complaint, the answer, the motions, and you'll do the background research on whatever their motion is, whether they want to suppress evidence or whatever the summary judgment. You'll do the background research, and you'll talk to the judge. What is his thought on the decision he's trying to reach, and you'll prepare some background writing for him. It's a good opportunity.
How does it differ from, how do your two experiences differ? The types of work you did as an intern versus as a law fellow. Is there a difference, or do you think they don't make a difference with you because you sort of had this somewhat continuous situation
My
there?
internship experience was more background research, novel issues, an interpretation of a law that hadn't been applied, in the past, it didn't have precedent. What I'm doing now is more drafting of preparation work for summary judgment memos, different bench memos, that type of thing. The court has the field placement internships. They're also offering a summer internship.
Which is one of the handouts that people can grab as a
Right.
whole application.
Right, so that, they're looking for certain things, it's listed there. And then also, once you've graduated, the law fellowship is a great opportunity. It's a one-year program, and you're assigned to a courthouse for a 3-month period. And so I've chosen courthouses in Bristol County, so I'm in Barnstable right now. I'll probably be either in Taunton or Fall River or New Bedford later on in the year. And it's a continuation, more of the same. Research, the one-on-one contact with a judge, and observation. It's a chance to see the written work from other attorneys, see how they've written their brief. Some of them are good, some of them are your question, could this person really go to law school? But you do the background research, and it's fun. It's
They
great.
probably didn't do an internship.
I just think it's a great opportunity. If you have any questions, give me a call.
Can
Or
I get your
email.
email right, by the way? I sort of
I-
took a stab at that.
I use Gmail, gmail.com. I
Okay, you don't mind if, I didn't want to give your personal email.
That's fine.
Okay,
It's not a problem.
but I'm happy to give it, you want to,
rwynot
yep,
@gmail.com.
thank you.
I'm not sure that this one would work.
Yeah, I kind of guessed at it
Yep.
a little bit, but after Denise said her little email situation, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and-
I actually spoke with Romeo last night, and I'm not sure if he's established email accounts for everybody.
Okay.
He's not fanatical about confidentiality, as like I am.
Yeah, no, I don't think we do. But and Romeo said to give out his email. He'd be happy
Yeah.
to take an email from
And
anyone.
that's the one that's below us also.
Yep.
Nice.
So Richard, you've been, put in this horrible position of having all these wonderful people talk about their wonderful programs.
Well, I'd like, I wouldn't take much time to do it, but I would like to say, reinforce what the others have said, and particularly what Denise has said about how to apply, really. But I think the appeals court may present more distant opportunities for, I think most of you are first-year students, right? We have a limited number of internships, but pretty much, and the appeals court's in Boston, so anything you do as an intern or clerk would really require you being up there. So that's why I say I think that those opportunities might be a bit far away for those of you who are first-year students. I don't know how much I need to tell you about what the appeals court does. It's an intermediate appellate court. We get all the appeals from the trial courts except first-degree murder, and those cases go directly to the Supreme Judicial Court, or SJC. And I think you've probably read enough cases on appeal so you have some idea of what an appellate court does. So I won't go into that, other than to say that being a law clerk, I think anywhere, is the best thing you could do. And I also want to say that you've picked the greatest profession that there is. I think the world can't have too many lawyers. We really need them. And the other thing I'd like to say about this school in particular is that I moved here before there was a UMass, and certainly before there was a law school. And I can't tell you how great influences those schools, this law school, much shorter time to have influence, but this is a very different area because of UMass. And now I think the law school has that same potential for doing great things, not only for the area, but state and even bigger regions. Maybe you know that, do they call Professor Jacobs or?
Judge Jacobs.
No, but
Still, or as Judge Larkin said, I don't think they call him Your Excellency. But it's called Judge Jacobs.
Well, he served on the appeals court for quite a few years until he had all the justices have to retire at 70. And then more recently, maybe half a dozen years ago, Justice Cipher, who taught here, I don't know if you all knew her, but she was appointed to the appeals court and now lives in Boston. And the Chief Justice of the court, Raposa, was a district court judge for many years in this area and has roots here, grew up here. And so there are those three who have a very direct interest in the well-being of the school and the region. And I think you will also find that the court maintains some presence here. At least once a year, we'll have a panel justices sitting here to hear cases. I don't know.
Often in this room, actually. I think it's often in this room.
Oh, yes, right. And that's something you would not want to miss. I think the next sitting probably will be toward the spring. And that is a very good way to see what's going on. In the meantime, the appeals court has a very good website, as does the SJC. And I think you ought to look at it. I won't go into application procedures. Those are spelled out very clearly. And Frank Mockler is listed here. He's the managing attorney of the clerks. And he plays a big role in screening applications and arranging for interviews and so on. But I won't go into that. That's something you can learn about later. It's a very, the clerkships are very competitive. There aren't 30. There are 25 justices in the court. And there are 30 clerkships. They probably get 500 or more applications. So it's
Not the greatest odds.
no, but we really want to see the graduate of this school get a clerkship.
Everybody hear that? Have
And-
amazing grades, do great internships. I mean, I think that it seems like it's really ripe for it. There's a lot of people from this region who would love to advance someone from this school if it's the right person. And, you know, it's extraordinarily competitive, so grades are going to be a part of it. It's not the only part of it, but, you know, these are the kinds of opportunities that you have to hear and really figure out how to harness.
You know, I've sat on a number of panels with Frank over the last, 10 years, 8 years. And one of the things that he does say, though, is that that people who have had the opportunity to internship at the appeals court during the summer, that is looked upon favorably when there are clerkship opportunities available. And I know he has mentioned that at a number of panels. So it may be, that you could get your foot in the door.
And that's sort of playing on what Jill said
I don't
as
know
well.
whether they still
Jill
have the
said that-
internship program in the summer.
Yeah, it's very small. I think this fall there are only 9, but that is a possibility. And I think I should stop there and see if you have any questions. I do think that you ought to look at the website, get more familiar with what the court does. I think you probably know what the duties of a clerk would be, and all the clerks except me go to oral argument. I don't, because I work down here. I never found oral arguments very helpful. My judge thought the same thing, but you ought to do it. If you get a clerkship, you really should do it, because that's part of the experience.
And that's like moot court. I mean, that's what a moot court exercise typically is. Moot court is usually an appeals case that's on appeal. So if anybody's any interest in doing moot court while they're in school and being on one of the moot court teams, that's what an appeals court does. So
And
think of that as...
There's, you can get webcasts of arguments from the appeals court and the SJC. And you can go onto the SJC or the appeals court website, and there's a link to the webcast. Unfortunately, the people who work in the trial court system are not allowed to look at the webcast. So you folks can do it, but we can't. We have to go.
I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Well, so this was the part where I have my prize to give away. Okay, these are really yummy jellies. And usually I try to wait till this point, see who is sort of really paying attention and figure out some overriding theme of the panel. So my question today, to get your jelly bellies, is what's the common theme? What's a commonality that each of these panelists have talked about in doing an internship at any of their courts?
First of all, take advantage of it if you can, and secondly, show up professional and prepared at the beginning of the process.
That's good. I wasn't thinking that. Does anybody else want to try? Echo, you already got the
I'll
M&M's
give it
ones.
away. If I win, I'll forfeit. I was just going to say that each of the internships involves legal research and writing, and that's a giant part of what we do.
You know, and I was thinking that was a good one. Does anybody have another one? Shannon?
If you can get an internship, do it, because it's going to usually benefit your future career, or maybe get you a job.
Wow, you're all really paying attention, because that's not the thing I had anybody else. And you're like all bringing up really good points. I'm like, I gotta go get some more jelly beans, so I gotta get. Anybody else have any thoughts about a commonality about the actual internship experience?
I was just going to say maybe do something to set yourself apart from all the other applicants.
That's true too.
It's a learning experience. It's part of, you go to learn and to help, and it's a two-way street.
Good too, Sarah. That's not what I was thinking.
It's really not fair that you have something in mind.
But seeing, if you're talking about in terms of the actual internship
Yes.
experience, they all involve research and writing, legal research and writing.
All right, so I'm gonna have to buy a lot. Go ahead, Steve.
In terms of the internships, they're helpful, and without them, you're probably not going to go anywhere.
All right, so I'm gonna have to buy a lot of jelly beans. I will tell you what I was gonna say, and then I'm gonna give all of you, because you're all, I really appreciate the participation. What I was thinking, and I had 2 things actually that I thought were pretty common themes about the actual internship experience, not the benefits. I think a lot of you were talking about the benefits of the experience. Was that there is contact with judges, direct contact with judges, and also direct observation of lawyers practicing law. And that sometimes you're going to see great lawyering, and sometimes you're going to see less than great lawyering. So that's what I was thinking about the actual experience. I didn't phrase my question well, but quite frankly, I think the points you all brought up were perhaps better than the one that I was trying to make. So all of you, I can't give that.
You know, I want to say something about the watching the lawyers and watching good and bad lawyers. That's just one piece of it, because you can be a decent oral advocate for your attorneys, like for your clients. But if you write terribly, that's what the law clerks are going to see. Because law clerks don't spend a ton of time observing in the courtroom. So they may never see your presentation. What they're gonna get is your writing. And if you don't write well, they're gonna look at it and they're gonna say, I can't take the time to get through this because it's written so poorly. And they'll, they may not look at your proposed findings or your proposed order or your proposed judgments unless they're really well written. So,
although in the case of the land court, I think it's a little different because you are, from what I understand from you and from the Chief Justice, that the clerks are actually really in the court the whole time throughout the trial, sort of right with the judge the whole time.
That's right. I mean, it's up to the judge. Usually the judge takes their interns in with them. Some interns go out on a view with the judge where they're actually going to the site and seeing the piece of property in question. They usually do that the day before a trial, and then they start the trial that afternoon. So they'll take their intern with them. You're taking notes. They're asking you, well, what did you think? You'll be surprised. They always want to know what you think. They want to hear see what you've observed.
That's something I heard a lot last night at the presentation that I was telling you about when we started this. A lot of the judges, they might even have something in mind, like I just had something in mind, but they will say, what did you think? Or what was your impression? And I think they do that for two reasons. I think sometimes it's because they want to know, did you really pick up something that they didn't pick up? Was there some observation or fact or something that stood out that they just really didn't see? Part of it also, I think, is there's a teaching part of it. They might say, well, I'm going to find this way, and the reason I'm going to do this, and this, so even though you did this, and it gets them to teach you, and I think all the judges who are interns really, that's a part of it they really enjoy. They enjoy that mentoring part, but also it makes, when you continue on, the next time you're faced with that, you now how to handle that because you've learned along the way. So there's a lot of that sort of constant give and take. But the question of what do you think came up last night.
And we have a lot of judges in the probate and family court who actually ask the interns and the law clerks what they think, saying the opposite of what they want to say. So they'll tell you that what they're going to do is one thing, even though they know that's not what they're going to do, because they want you to argue the other position to make sure that what they plan on doing is accurate or that it works well. Because in the probate and family court, there's so much discretion with the judges that it's a lot of it comes down to credibility and gut. And so they really want to try to work through with the interns and the law clerks the other side of it to say, well, could it be done a different way? Because when you're dealing with families, there are really so many different possibilities of how you can come to a solution on things.
Michael, you were going to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the gentleman's statement in the back that if you don't get a judicial internship, it's all over. Reminded me of a movie which you probably are all too young to have seen, but The Verdict with Paul Newman. And he's this washed up Boston College law school grad. And he's in a bar drinking, he's pounding a pinball machine, he's saying, this is the only case, there are no other cases. And I remember talking to a judge and they're like, well, he should have been disbarred because of all the things he did wrong in that case. But I'm like, it's never over. A judicial internship is one thing. If you get it, you get it. I didn't get it. I basically found myself working in the court system and, you get promoted. I started out working in a clerk's office. I worked there for a week and got transferred to the judge's lobby at an incredibly low starting salary, and then worked my way up over years. And we have judges in the Boston Municipal Court who are actually janitors in the Boston Municipal Court. Not everyone gets the easy path, fast pass or whatever to fame and wealth and prosperity. I think a lot of people don't tell you their story because they want to keep it private, but if I've been to bar association functions, all kinds of things. Different judges will reveal their story. And my parents were immigrants. No one spoke English in our house. My parents wanted something better for me, and they found themselves in law school with no connections, no anything. And life just, unfolds, and you do the best you can. If one door closes, you have to have the persistence to keep going forward when you start to get bad news. And I hate to be the gloomy Gus or whatever up here, but all through your academic career, if you're here, you're a good student, and you've you've had nothing but success, A's, and, pats on the back, and soccer trophies, and, a whole catalog of achievements. Then when you get out of law school, it's like, okay, where's my, great job that I worked so hard and deserve? And you do deserve it, but it just doesn't like fall from the heavens. And it's once you get your first job, you make your reputation on the work that you do. It's not so much where you went to law school, the internships that you had. When people evaluate you, it's oftentimes, 30-second look on your resume. Oh, great, they all get good grades. But sometimes it's something, that will stand out to someone. Oh, Michael likes to, sail. He sailed sailboats on the Charles River. I do that. Or we hang out in the same place. Or more often than not, it's, oh, somebody recommended me to you. So it's really your reputation that head and shoulders stands out above anything else. And sometimes you have to be smart enough to pick up on the subtle cues that people will offer you. When you're young, you kind of think you know everything. And I presently have a mentee student from another law school who's supposed to look up to me. And every year the school sends me over students. Last year I got a student who was getting married and had absolutely no interest in learning anything about the law. So it worked out great for me because I'd call her every month, how you doing? Great, the wedding plans are going along excellent. and she's happily married, so I was glad to offer some wedding tips, and been married for 16 years, so I know a little about that. This year I have an amazing student who has done all kinds of stuff. She was a manager at the Westin Hotel, which I was pretty impressed by. I'm like, why would you want to leave a great job like that to be a lawyer? And she's going to law school, and I mentioned something in our court that we have drug court sessions, and I was very involved in that program. So she called me up and said, is there any chance you can get me a spot on one of the drug court panels? I'd like to sit and observe. So I made a few phone calls, and I picked the best judge in our department, found out when his session was, and he said, oh, bring your student over. I'd love to have her sit on the bench with me. And I'm thinking, what an incredible honor. So I called her up, and the response that I got from this person that I had all the faith in the world in was, well, I have class that day. And I was like, well, this will only take about an hour, 2 hours tops. Well, it's getting close to the end of the semester and finals, and I don't know, maybe next March or something. So I was like, okay, fine. And my wife was like, you need to be more understanding. There's students, they want to do well in school. And I was like, this girl just blew an incredible opportunity. And now I look stupid in front of the judge. So, we don't like to look stupid in front of our superiors. But the point is, if you don't get an internship, it's not the end of the world. Frankly, you're not even going to remember it. and then when you go back in that court, you'll say,
I'd like to put a disclaimer on this videotape.
And then when you go back into that court that turned you down, or say, I don't need you.
I just want to say one thing in response to all that. I think what's sort of making me chuckle here is that we all have very different personalities, and our presentations are all very different. And what I think is important as students to know is that there's a place for everybody. And sometimes it's just a little bit harder to figure out where your place is, but there's a place for everybody. And don't get discouraged if you think that your place is one place and they don't think so. There's someplace else for you.
I was telling Jill that the Chief Justice of the Land Court was one of the panelists at last night's presentation that I spoke at. And Denise, I told Jill that you would correct me about this if I was wrong, but didn't she say she really wanted, when she was graduating law school, she wanted a clerkship at the Superior Court? She was sure that that was for her. But the court apparently disagreed with her, and she did not get her coveted Superior Court clerkship, and she ended up, by someone's suggestion, and I don't know if it was Judge Kratzley's suggestion, but someone suggested that she clerk at the land court.
No, she went to Bill Young's court. She got to the district court, and then the district court sent her, or the federal district court, Bill Young sent her to Judge Fenton. And then Judge Fenton, who was the Chief Justice of the land court, and she, now she's the Chief Justice, but she didn't get an internship, a clerkship, at the Superior Court.
Now she's the Chief Justice of the land court. So, she didn't really, she had her heart set on it, and she thought that was the right thing for her. And I think she really strongly feels that Tom dedicated to her. So, go on.
Well, can I tell you one that's up a notch from that? Recently, maybe none of you have heard of, there was a very formidable justice on the SJC for many years, and when he had to retire, he served on the appeals court as a recall justice, Benjamin Kaplan. And there's been nobody like him ever, before or since. And at a memorial service for him, who died not too long ago, Chief Justice Margaret Marshall, who retired from the SJC, was telling about when she graduated from Yale, she applied for a clerkship with Kaplan, who was then on the SJC, and she didn't get it. And she said that somebody told her that Kaplan had said he had a law clerk from Yale once, and he was a disaster, and he'll never have another. And well, there she is, the Chief Justice of the SJC, saying, well, he didn't ever have another. Look where she went.
She filled his shoes. Do people have any questions, or would people prefer, go?
I'd just like to thank you all for being here, but I have one question. I can't miss the opportunity. It's to Mr. O'Blosterman. How do you keep hope alive?
My two kids, Margot and Michael, who are 10 and 12, take Taekwondo, and I wish that I had had the opportunity to take that earlier in life, because it's all about we commit ourselves to mental and physical discipline. I know their whole program, but I think you really have to, becoming a lawyer is a process, and you do have to strive for balance in everything. You have to be focused on achieving your goals and doing everything you can to move forward with what you want. And I think you have to be optimistic. If you're not an optimistic person by nature, you need to hang out with people who are. I recently was at a Mass Bar program, and the Dean of Suffolk Law School said, you are the sum of the 4 people that you surround yourselves with. And she mentioned in her career, there were people in high school who tried to hold her back and knock her down. So there are negative influences in the world. You have to, keep your goal in mind, do whatever you can. And then, to quote Tom Cruise, who, used to be legit, but in the movie Risky Business, sometimes you have to say, what the heck? And just, it's out of your hands. You can't worry about stuff that's out of your hands. The economy's bad, not much you can do about it, but you don't give up the ship, you still keep going forward. Try to make as many contacts as you can. Also, don't burn bridges with people. If something didn't go your way in a particular internship or at school with a particular teacher, try to keep things positive, because you never know when that person might be able to help you out. You don't ever want anything bad said about you. Just try to meet as many people as you can, learn about as many people's experiences. Doing programs like this is really critical. I think having outside distractions from the law is a good thing. People are interested in people who are well-rounded individuals. We all have to work with you guys when you come into our office, and most everyone in the court system is very friendly, and it's a great place to work, and we enjoy students, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And when you come in with your knowledge of technology, iPads, music, movies, we all benefit from that. There's been a hiring freeze in the trial court for a number of years, so
we're all getting old.
Yeah, we're getting older. We don't know how to do iPads, and that stuff is really important to us. My daughter offered to create my PowerPoint presentation for today, but she said she's in the 7th grade. I can do a fabulous PowerPoint for you. I'm like, oh, that's great. But it's going to cost you $10 a slide. So I would just say, you just have to really make it a part of your mission in life to keep hope alive and to Look at the big picture sometimes. It's easy in law school to get so, geared on what you're doing now, and law school flies by, and then it's hopefully a pleasant memory, and you'll remember nice days like this, and you'll be so busy with, your cases, and it's important to develop friendships in school with alumni and also with classmates, because the legal world is very small, and you don't know when someone will be able to help you. Before we were blocked from Facebook on the trial court network, I could throw a question out to my friends, a lot of whom were from law school, and within minutes I'd get an answer, but then, they decided to block us from Facebook, so I guess that's the
That's what you'll leave us with?
Yeah.
We're all getting old. We're all getting
What I
old.
want to do is I want to leave enough time for everybody who's interested to come up and talk individually to the panelists. I did tell everybody that we close by about 1:30, so we're just running a touch over, but I first wanted to thank the panelists. Everybody was super. I really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll come back next year.